Africa's revolutionary leader and president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, has accused the governments of Ivory Coast and Benin for working with France to destabilize Burkina Faso and other Sahel countries. Speaking recently in a largely packed sports arena in Ouagadougou during the launch of his 5-year vision for the extended transition period, Ibrahim Traore said Ivory Coast and Benin had established French-operated rear operating bases where insurgents were trained, armed, and coordinated their operations against Burkina Faso and other Sahel states. President Traore challenged the leaders of Benin and Ivory Coast to stop pretending and lying to the people about diplomatic means of solving conflicts when diplomacy to the two countries actually meant lies. President Traore said diplomacy is a good thing if there is truth involved in it for the good of the common people. In his words, he said, "We have opted for diplomacy of the truth, but we do not intend to follow the logic of lying or covering up certain reality. Although it is also diplomacy, but it is false diplomacy. I can tell you, what you see and hear when people come to the audience to speak on the microphone is only the visible part of the iceberg. What happens behind closed doors is nothing to do with diplomacy." Traore spoke with vigor, affirming that Burkina Faso and its leadership will not be party to diplomacy of lying to the people. He said he and his Sahel alliance counterparts who recently signed a pact had been criticized by puppets of the French in the region for telling their people every single truth without leaving anything behind for diplomacy. In his words, he said, "Some will criticize us. Others will say things like, 'No head of state should speak like that. A head of state should not do that.' I wonder maybe these people who criticize us for telling the truth to the people have a special school they went to learn how to be heads of state, how the head of state must behave or must be. But as far as I am concerned, I have never known any such school." Ibrahim emphasized that the leadership of Burkina Faso will not seek to jump into bandwagons of lies to the people in the name of diplomacy, simply because for decades the puppets African leaders have led that life to their people. He said Burkina Faso seeks to establish a model leadership that defines the people of Burkina Faso. Ibrahim further emphasized that true leadership means being open to the people you lead and telling them the truth, and that if a mistake is made, the leader should be able to come out to their people and ask for forgiveness. In his words, he said, "We do not seek to be in the bandwagon of simply resembling others. We want to create our model, one that defines our identity. And I think a Burkinabe, by definition, is a man of integrity, who wants the truth. And when the truth comes out, even when we have made mistakes, we must have the courage to come out and tell you, the people, that on this side we have made a mistake, and we ask for your forgiveness. If you chose to forgive us, you forgive us. But we no longer want to associate with lies in the name of diplomacy." Ibrahim, who spoke with valor, said his government has always complained about the ill intentions of the government of Ivory Coast, but all they got back was criticism. Ibrahim said the people of Burkina Faso and their government have nothing against their brothers and sisters in Ivory Coast, but insisted Burkina Faso definitely has something with those who rule Ivory Coast. Ibrahim affirms the existence of a rear French operating base in Abidjan in Ivory Coast, and another in Kandi and Porga in Benin, promising to avail the evidence he has at hand to public in the following days. In his words, I quote, "There is indeed an operation center in Abidjan that is being used to destabilize our country. No one can deny it, and we will provide evidence in the following days. We will show you physical proof so that everybody understands what we are talking about. No one can come up and tell us that there is no French base in Benin directly against us. We have the evidence at hand. We say it again loud and clear. In this diplomacy, we have decided to tell the truth. There are indeed two bases, one towards Kandi and the other towards Porga, or something like that." Traore spoke with pinpointed accuracy, stating how a plain land of up to 3,000 meters long was filled with equipment, and trucks and training of terrorists was being conducted in preparation for attacks on Burkina Faso. Adding that the government of Burkina Faso had concrete evidence to back up its claims, including audio recording of French agents in the rear operating bases in the two countries. In his words, he said, We see they have trucks and equipment assembled in a more than 3,000-meter plain land. Training of terrorists to attack our people is ongoing. We have audio recordings of French agents in Benin who run the terrorist operations at the center. They mount the operations with the terrorists. They help them and take care of them. We have all the details, and they don't want us to tell our people. But just how does Ibrahim Traore and his intelligence manage to stay ahead of the French thugs and their puppets in the region? Well, the answer is pretty simple. After breaking ties with their former colonial masters, France and the puppets continued to underestimate the zeal of Ibrahim Traore as a young, inexperienced leader. Little did the exploiters of Burkina Faso's resources know that Ibrahim Traore was building new alliance with Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey. One of the most significant outcomes of these new alliance was the acquisition of cutting-edge technology weapons from Russia, China, and Turkey, including the Bayraktar II and Bayraktar Akinci aerial vehicles. The Bayraktar II and Bayraktar Akinci aerial vehicles have been very key in intelligence gathering and reconnaissance, let alone providing hellfire support to ground forces wreaking enormous damage on the insurgents. The Bayraktar Akinci is by no doubt one of the most sophisticated drones in the military ranks today, only comparable to America's MQ-9 Reaper. Its ability was demonstrated when the Iranian president's helicopter crashed. Iranian security agencies had for hours and days failed to locate the wreckage of the helicopter, only to call on the Bayraktar Akinci to do the work in a few hours, and the wreckage was located. For this reason, it's by no doubt Africa's youngest revolutionary leader is ahead of the Benin and Ivory Coast puppets trying to undermine Burkina Faso's security. In fact, it is worthy saying that while the French imperialists hold meeting with puppets leaders of Benin and Ivory Coast and conduct terror-based trainings in the dark or deep in the lonely deserts, thinking it's secret, the eyes of the Bayraktar Akinci are on them. As he drew closer to the end of his speech, Traore wondered why the puppets leaders in Benin and Ivory Coast do not want to be told to stop behaving like traitors, liars, and puppets. He, however, said Burkina Faso does not force any person in the Sahel state to own their independence as long as they do not make their countries launch pads for attacks against the people of Burkina Faso. In his words, he said, "We are not forcing any person to own their independence. If you chose to remain in your situation, be there. But do not make your country a launch pad for attacks and destabilization of other nations, because at the end of the day, it will be our local brothers and sisters of Benin and Ivory Coast to suffer." We are talking from experience. Burkina Faso has, and I will repeat, has ever been a rear operating base of the French for destabilization of certain countries, and this is not something good. Our former leaders allowed rear operating bases to be established on our soil for terrorist operations against certain countries, and we have had to pay the price. We urge the people of these two countries to speak to their leaders because they are on a wrong path that does not suit them at all. Leave us a comment telling us what you think about Ibrahim Traore's comment on the two puppets leaders. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you are among the first to watch videos like this when we release them. Also, support our website dedicated to African Daily News Collection by visiting www.africadigitallibrary.com. Thank you for watching.